This is Slashers, for real this time, because my equipment is tentatively working. My name is Jake, for the first time in a very long time. And with me, as always, even if I'm not here, are my esteemed colleagues, co-host, and cohorts, Adrian and Doug. Gang, say hello to the mutant goons from beyond.
Hey, Mutant Goons, it's been a long time, but hey, it's a nostalgic episode with us three originals and a nostalgic movie, too.
I know. I could just tear up listening to Jake do the intro because it feels like it's been so long. Hey, guys, it's Ade.
It's only been about 10 minutes since I did it the first time and had to abandon that recording because it sounded like butthole sex.
I know, and that was a good one, but it's okay. It's fine.
I think this one's better because I got the and better.
Yeah, and we never had butthole sex at Warped Tour. It's actually not bad. I'm kidding.
I know. I'm like, what does that sound like, Jake?
Yeah, I keep looking over because I'm still technically on a court call, and if I get unmuted while I'm talking about butthole sex, I'll probably get in trouble.
No. Just say like your kids took your phone.
Yeah.
It wasn't you.
And then my kids were talking about butthole sex. Great reflection. But you want to talk about feeling old and parentage and all this fun stuff? I now have a child who is older than I was the first time I saw the Toxic Avenger.
Wow.
Oh.
Crazy.
Did she watch the Toxic Avenger with you or no? No.
As I was watching it, I was like, how did this happen? How was I allowed? How was I neglected to a point where I was doing this? Like the epitome of a latchkey kid. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, here's one thing I'll tell you. With your background, for you listeners out there, Jake's got the Toxic Crusaders background. It's just so bright and vibrant, and it's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So,
yep.
You know, I remember as a kid, before I even saw the Toxic Avenger movie, someone, maybe a neighbor or someone, gave us a coloring book of Toxic Crusaders, and it had Toxie on there. So that's how I was familiar with him, was the coloring book. And then, years later, I think I saw this when I was 14. So I was a little, I was in my finding out what waxing the carrot age was.
There you go.
And when I saw this, and I'm like, oh, why is this movie in the horror section? I used to rent movies from the library. It was in the horror section. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he looked creepy on the cover. I'm like, wait a minute, this was the coloring book I had as a kid. Let's check it out. Oh, so my world was turned.
Your library had this movie?
My library had this movie, yeah. It was Lakewood Library in Ohio. So for those of you that go there, and they still have it there, because I went there when I lived out there, and they still have that exact same VHS copy that I rented geez, how old am I now? 30, 31? Yeah, 31 years old. I rented when I was 14 years old.
That's amazing.
Oh.
People like to think that libraries are this, this stuffy old thing, but a lot of it is very provocative content. Like I look at the Cloud Library app, and there's an app called Hoopla. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but if your library is signed up to it, you could stream stuff through it or read books through it. And some of the stuff I'm like, ooh, I might be watching this once my family goes to sleep and I actually have free time.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I remember that same library, and I don't even know if there was an age restriction, because I remember renting and watching for the first time Toxic Avenger, Fritz the Cat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I saw Fritz the Cat as a kid. And then what was the other movie I did? Dress to Kill. And there was another, like a softcore. It was Let My Puppets Come. No, it was Let My Puppets Come. They had like a big box VHS of that. So it was a puppet porno comedy musical.
Wow, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Let My Puppets Come.
That's an interesting library.
It's just pornographic Sesame Street kind of. So
Sesame Street.
Sesame Street, yeah.
Oh.
Ade, what kind of puppet pornography do you enjoy?
Well, not puppet pornography, and certainly none from the library, although it's weird because our public library is right downstairs from me, and I don't go inside because there's always there's a lot of seedy, I don't want to say that they're just homeless, but they're druggy too, that are always whipping their dicks out in the street. So I feel like there's a lot of places they could probably whip their dick out in the library. So I just don't feel like I need to.
Do they wear the long brown trench coat and have they look like the bad guys from the Narc video game?
Well, you should see it. It's so bad. We were walking home the other night from dinner. There was one with his dick out, pissing in the bushes, and behind the hedges at the library. Of course, the library was closed at this time, but And I'm like, why there are people
I'm
here,
looking
like
right
there's
now, Your
families
Honor.
here. This guy has this
And
nasty
let's
dick out.
see.
So
Drum roll,
anyways, but
please.
I digress.
Order approving.
I've
Dramatic
I've never
tension,
seen
and it
this as
looks
a kid.
good.
I've only seen
And you
like
corrected
pieces of the
division
cartoon,
of
and I
fees, so
think
that's
probably
perfect.
just
Thank you, Your Honor. I
because
appreciate that very
it
much.
must have been on TV or it must like I just remember looking at
All
the
right, Your Honor.
cartoon.
Have a great
I
day.
don't remember watching it. And it was weird because I was talking to my coworker
No
today,
problem.
and she was telling me like she's like, "What movie are you doing today?" And I'm like, "You're in Troma again, the Toxic Avenger." And she's like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "I like that cartoon." I'm like, "You've seen the fucking cartoon?" Like, and she was somebody that I would never think who'd seen this. So I mean, I think it's definitely a cultural phenomenon at this point. I don't know.
If I
Yeah.
may be so bold, I'm rejoining the conversation after a brief reprieve while I was making a argument before a judge, an argument, and the correct answer as to your favorite type of puppet pornography is puppets. Should I do it again?
Yeah, it gives that's late night at Bob Baker Marionette Place.
Oh, that would be fun.
I should have known the types of conversations that would be afoot when we do Troma. So this is exciting.
Yeah.
Doug, let me ask you: do you kind of like tan line titties?
I do. Well, this movie has actually they're triangle tan line titties.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, after being on vacation and back, I kind of have that right now. So don't be talking shit about tan lines. Okay.
What I'm saying is that I indoctrinated into this fetishism at a very young age, and somehow I married a woman who is paler than an alabaster albatross that's albino.
Well, just tell her to go to one of those Final Destination tanning beds. Those things work. So
where Ade used to work watching movies the whole time.
Yeah.
Did you ever get people coming up to your job and like, is this melanoma?
Oh yeah, they would ask me like some girls would get, and I hate to say this, it's always the white girls.
Mhm.
They get like these like scales on their skin from tanning too much, and they're like, how come you don't have that, or why is it happening to me? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I just work
It's
here.
called
Like,
melanin, bitch.
I'm like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, that's disgusting.
Have you guys heard of crocodile? It's an old thing, but it was an internet thing.
Yeah,
for a while.
it's cheaper than heroin, and you put it in here and it melts your skin down. It's like street trash, literally.
Yeah, it flakes off like little scales. And that's why they call it that.
We had a huge problem with that here in Florida, and it wasn't that long because I think that's what that guy was taking when he ate the face in Miami.
Bath salts guy?
Oh no, that was bath salts. Okay,
Yeah.
so it wasn't that, but I remember that being an issue in Miami. Not with me.
Not Miami, but your Amy.
Yeah, well, I remember that too. And they were eating like it was a thing, crocodile in Florida. Because I remember there was something on the news, and I remember being so funny. They're like, there's not going to be any, overweight fat kids in Florida because all the moms are using the spoons.
Oh wow!
And I remember them like, wait, Florida's like that. This place sounds sleazy as fuck. I gotta go.
Sounds like the New Jersey of the South.
I laughed at the Doug's like, I gotta go.
Oh yeah.
There's some. I mean, it gets pretty bad. I mean, I imagine it gets bad like that anywhere, though. I mean,
yeah, El Monte. Well, El Monte's not as bad as I make it out to be. But you go to the gym in El Monte and the workouts, and they're doing the press. They're like, sup, foo. Sup, foo. Sup, foo.
It's orale.
Yeah. So, but no, one time I went to El Monte. It's not as bad as I make it out to be, but yeah, I remember going to a car dealer shop before he got the car that I had, and the one guy's like, "You looking for a car?" I say. So I'm like, yeah. Let me go ahead. Do you have any of those? Yeah. We got these the Dodge Charger hatchbacks, foo. Like he kept saying foo, and I'm like, dude, you're in a suit and you're just going foo. So
I never liked like unless there's very narrow circumstances with which I like foo. That would be like a Mr. T kind of foo.
Yeah.
I don't like just being called foo like it's the punctuation at the end of a sentence, because then it makes me want to get defensive and accuse the speaker of being the foo.
Well, usually when they say foo, I'm like, I just do this. I look behind me to see if there's any. I'm like, who me?
oh, well, Doug's no foo.
He's a see-through foo. That's why he looks behind him.
Oh, well, speaking of behind you, Doug, I see we have our film in question playing, and it's the fun scene.
Yeah, the scene that Jake showed his wife.
Yeah, it didn't go over well. It was probably about 2 minutes too early because you get to see Toxie's girlfriend about to be accosted, the dog shot. But I think it was a very interesting glimpse into the raised by wolves childhood that I had.
Well, okay, so that's an interesting thing because the 80s, I mean, there was a lot of cocaine in the 80s, but honestly, like RoboCop had a cartoon too. Rambo had a cartoon. Yep. It's just, but this movie hits different from, I mean, RoboCop's pretty violent, but this movie, you get a kid's head ran over, you get, assault, blind characters, and arguably Melvin is the first autistic superhero. So, that's just kind of, they mentioned that in the fourth movie. They're like, you're my best student, Melvin. So, I don't know. It's just very different. Like how this got a cartoon. What's up?
Does it bother you that they changed his name from Melvin Ferd III to Junko? I never liked the Junko name. No,
it just seemed too cartoony. But there's a whole I've seen this movie I've seen it probably 100 times. But yeah, Lloyd on the commentary even said that they did that to appeal to Junko. Just sounds more cartoony because when they did the 2 and 3, that's when the cartoon was coming out. So
yeah, and 2 and 3. I mean, that's one of the frustrating things as well. You see these like Snyder cuts and director's cuts, and you get Ridley Scott doing the final director's penultimate cut of Blade Runner and stuff. I would wonder if, I highly doubt that this stuff is preserved enough, but I wonder if there is a good movie in 2 and 3 because they're both bad. 2 is less bad, but 3 is just objectively the worst of the 4. And I wonder if you could, hodgepodge it together to the original 1 movie it was meant to be, if it would be any good.
It would be a long ass movie because 2 and 3 were supposed to be 1 movie.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So then when they split it, I'm saying if you could cut out all the fluff and add-on stuff and just get to like the veritas of what that 1 movie would have been, I think that might have potential. But even then, 1 is perfect. Like 4 is a little too ableist for me. I know that it's all silly and provocative, but that's a topic that I'm always very defensive over. So yeah.
Yeah, the 4th movie, I think they were just like, I guess the best way to say it, it's like they held back so much on 2 and 3, and they just had to like let it blow their load on the 4th movie. So they just threw everything, including the kitchen sink, because the 4th movie is crazy. Like I show that to people who haven't seen it. Like usually if we have like parties or something, I'll throw that on. And people are like, "What the fuck movie is this?" Yeah. So it's a good party background movie. But lo and behold, the original Toxic Avenger, I have Toxie tattooed on my arm here because this movie means so much to me. I saw it when I was 14 years old, rented it at the library. And I guess what makes it so special, which is kind of hard now, because nowadays you could stream this movie and, you could read reviews and people are like, "Oh yeah, this movie's a cult movie." I didn't know. The internet was AIM instant messenger, and you had to log in. We had dial up, and it was Ohio. We were still fucking using VHS tapes and floppy disks. So I didn't have any research. I saw the cover of this tape and I'm like, "Oh, that's the little coloring book I had as a kid." And I watched this movie and what I'll tell you. So movies like Creepshow 2, movies like Blood Diner, those ones made me love movies, love cult, like B movies and stuff like that. Toxic Avenger changed my life. You want to know why? Because it made me want to make movies of that caliber. Because after I watched this, I'm like, my brother was watching this with. Well, actually, I watched it first, and then my brother came down. I'm just kind of standing there. I'm like, this is the greatest fucking movie I have ever seen, and it's like 80 minutes. It's like perfect. It's sleazy. It's funny. It has suspenseful horror scenes, great action, great gore, extreme violence. I think this movie's got everything. I'm like, holy! When I watched it, I remember saying this vividly. I remember saying this was the movie I have always wanted to see, and I never knew existed. So. Yeah, this movie made me, for lack of a better word, cum in my pants when I first seen it as a teen. So I'm like, holy shit.
Like, you and I have like an inverse relationship where you had Blood Diner first and then fell into Toxie, and I had Toxie in my whole childhood and fell into Blood Diner. So your reaction to this movie was my reaction to Blood Diner of like, how have I never seen this? This is immaculate. And yeah, it's very interesting to think of like how it hits so many boxes that would become hugely influential to people who don't even make horror films necessarily. Like you talk to any filmmaker who's at least somewhat provocative, or who any kind of guerrilla filmmaker, and if they haven't seen this, it's like a rite of passage.
Mhm.
Like I feel like infinitely more creators now have seen this than Citizen Kane, than Gone with the Wind, than those, things that people want to act are the elitist things you have to have seen, those benchmarks of cinema. Because this is really, I think you're right, about filmmaking, because it's the, industriousness of making this happen. This is like the Tusk of its day. This was a pitch that's a joke, right?
Mhm.
They say like, oh, he's the first radioactive superhero, which is an inherently absurd concept. It's a joke pitch, and yet they made a movie about it that went on to be legendary.
Yeah, and honestly, this is the movie that I could watch over. Like if it's on, like I threw it on in the background, and I'll watch it. I never get bored with it, and it's a great introduction movie. I remember when I first started dating Yahira, we had like movie nights at our place. She's like, oh, what movies do you have? I'm like, oh, I got a movie for you. Then we watched Human Centipede 2 and the Toxic Avenger. And that's when we hit it off so good. So I'm like, and she's like, wow, this movie's crazy. So it's a great, like, honestly, for you single people out there, I'd say, if you want to get to know the person, see what their tolerance level is, throw on the Toxic Avenger, because either love it or hate it. Because it's weird. I've known people that said like, oh, I didn't like that movie at all. It's stupid. I'm like, did you even watch the movie? Like, seriously. And I'm like, well, what's your favorite movie? The Fast and the Furious Part 6.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, those are not your audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I will say with this one, I enjoyed it. For a Troma movie, I did enjoy it, and I think that it was a lot more cohesive than a lot of the other ones that I've been subjected to. Because I feel like this one has a beginning, middle, and end.
Yep.
You can follow it very easily. Like I had it on when I got home, and I was putting laundry away, but I was able, like, I didn't have to stop and rewind. Like, oh, did I miss something? Because I'm listening to it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Really great effects, especially when he's transforming. I was impressed. I started watching it on Tubi, and then Dan had gotten me a copy, and so I put on that one, and I guess it was better quality than what Tubi had, so I could see everything a lot better. So I was glad I did that, and yeah, I was really impressed by like there were parts in it, like when they're in the fast food restaurant and he's wrapping the guy and he's up in the bars, and then he's sticking his hands in the fryer.
Yeah.
Like I
Where
don't
you can
really
see the bubbles being made by his hands shaking and nothing else, which is a great, like, you're getting it done.
Yeah, I was like, ah, like I'm holding my socks as I'm putting it. I'm like, oh my God. So I there's a lot of it that I did enjoy. And I think it's really cute they have a little love story in it too. So,
Yeah, and I think that's what Yahira like that too. She's like, oh, I love the part when he eats the eggs. And I'm like, well, the part where he eats the eggs, like that's what she picked up out of it. But yeah, I mean, this movie's got like the whole scene where he's transforming and stuff like that's on par with like the Howling transformation, almost, like in terms of like suspense and then the creepy music. Like this movie just blends everything perfectly. And like you said, I don't think a lot of Troma movies, I love Troma, but I don't think a lot of movies are as like even Class of Nukem High is all over the place.
Yeah.
And this has a lot of the same actors in there, but and nowadays, and the thing is, I've noticed with Lloyd Kaufman, now that he's like taken full reign, because Michael Hers also directed this too, so I feel like they were, they had a straight path. But when Lloyd Kaufman, even on his newer movies like Terra Firma or Return to Nukem High and stuff, whenever he feels like a scene doesn't work, instead of cutting it, he films additional scenes.
Yeah.
So the movie becomes 2 hours or an hour and 48 minutes. I'm like, why is this movie so fucking long? Like, but Toxic Avenger just trims the fat. And there's actually 2 cuts of this movie. I have one of them's the Japanese cut, but I remember when I was a teenager, I loved this movie so much. And my dad took me and my brother to Medina, Ohio, because they had a midnight screening of the Toxic Avenger.
Oh, cool.
And it was like on an original 35 millimeter film. And at that point, I had worn out the tape from the library and ended up returning it to them. And we went to the midnight screening. And I'm like, Lloyd Kaufman was there, and from seeing like his little interviews on the tape, because this was before like internet and stuff like, I mean, internet existed, but just seeing Lloyd Kaufman like in the beginning of the VHS, because he always did like the introduction, seeing him in person, I was like, that's the first time I was ever like starstruck. I'm like, holy shit, like this guy like is here. And then he was the guy in a Toxie outfit, you know, they always have the Toxie character there, and that was the funnest midnight movie. Like literally people were going crazy. There were naked roller derby girls running around the theater. So it was very adult, and I was still a teenager at the time. But I was just like, holy shit, this movie is my rites of passage. You know, everyone says like, oh, Faces of Death should be your rites of passage. Like, no, Toxic Avenger was. But the different cut that played in the movie theater, and I guess it's also the Japanese cut.
That's the one you gave me on VHS.
So actually that version is a different version. That's the director's cut. But there's another cut of the movie where he kills Bozo and Slug, and then you know he kills the two girls, Julie and the other one in the hot rocks
Sauna,
and stuff.
yeah.
And you think they're dead, but in the cut that we saw in the theater, they live. Like Toxie just ends up cutting the girl's hair off with the scissors, and then he just ends up burning the girl's ass, and she's like at the police station making a statement. So.
Huh.
Yeah, which is weird because like, oh, we got to show the girls more. I'm like, no, just those girls are horrible. Those guys are like, these people are the most despicable, like bad guys ever. They run over kids' heads, give points depending on the race of the person they kill. It's it's intense.
Points for Puerto Ricans. I'm like,
Oh yeah, what did they say? Puerto Ricans were 30 points.
Yeah,
I feel like you should take that as a compliment. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's just me. From a cisgender white male.
I would. I'm like, hey, shit. Well, I'm more points. You better stand out there with a yellow shirt or something.
So you mentioned something about how linear this movie is, and not in a bad way. It's not like it's linear despite itself. I think the linear focus of it is truly kind of unique to Troma. This was edited by Richard W. Haynes, who went on to direct Class of Nukem High, who ended up losing whatever relationship he had with Lloyd Kaufman because he didn't get final edit of his movie. And that's why he went off and did his own films. And that was a huge split. And it was so interesting for me, having previously interviewed Richard, to kind of go into this movie again with kind of a new, fresh perspective and think about, like, I am absolutely positive that they probably had to argue quite a bit in the formation of this. Because, you know, Lloyd is somebody who does not want to, if he paid money for a piece of film, he's going to get that on the screen. And this movie is so succinct. It really, you know, there's so much that they took out. I can only imagine.
Yeah, like I said, that other scene changes the movie completely because it like keeps the characters in. But I think Lloyd said they shot that originally because they wanted more TNA from the girls. But I'm like, no, just like I don't know. But I like the cut that I gave you on tape. That was the original. In fact, that's the same VHS version that I got from the library. Like it says, I ended up buying it on eBay for that same like Troma release.
Nice.
So yeah, and so I have a little crazy story to tell here. I was egging Ade and Jake on earlier, but my first tattoo, right when I joined the military, my first tattoo was Toxie on my arm. So I ended up getting him, and then I ended up going to the military. And then when I got out, well, in between I was doing like classes and stuff, but I ended up going to school for a film degree. You know, what a waste of money that was. Yeah, but you know, screenwriting and stuff, and all that fun shit that I can't do anything with. But the one thing I remember, I was 14 years old when I saw it from the library, and I kept renting it, and it almost felt like what was it? Remember, it was like Beauty and the Beast. Remember when Belle keeps renting that same book? It's like, Belle, you like this book? Oh, but it's so great! I got to watch it again. So literally,
Keep it. It's yours.
You know, they didn't let me keep it. They charged me. But, you know, the lady at the library, I remember she had like these big Tootsie looking glasses, and she's like, this is like your third time this month renting this movie. She's like, what is it? I'm like, this movie is God. And she's like, well, enjoy, young man. And she just rented. So I've worn that tape out. I think I'm the one that rented it the most. And then the amazing technology hit Ohio. It existed before, but DVDs were around at the time. Yep. And I had got a PlayStation 2 that can play DVDs because I didn't have a DVD player. Those things were expensive. And Toxic Avenger was on DVD. And I didn't have an Amazon credit card or anything like that. And I kept calling. This is when I had to look in the phone books. So I was looking in the phone books, and there's this record store called The Exchange. They're all over Ohio and the East Coast, but they're like movies, like used movies and games and books and stuff like that and records. And I called them, and they said, yeah, we have the DVD copy of the Toxic Avenger here. It's $12. Do you want us to put it on the hold for you? I said, yes, I'll be there. I didn't have a car at the time. And at the time, I was, doing school, high school, 14 years old. Was that high school? I don't remember.
School, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So I was working a lifeguarding job. I was a lifeguard at the time, and I worked in the city of Cadell, and it was probably about 9 miles away. The Exchange was 9 miles away from where I worked, and I had an hour lunch break. And I'm like, holy shit, because they called me. They're like, we have your DVD of Toxic Avenger, and there's someone here that wants to get it, but we have it on hold for you for the rest of the day, but we close at 7. So I'm like, holy shit, I'm not going to make it in time because I'm off at 7. So on my lunch break, I said, you know what, I might take an extended lunch. And I remember I was in flip-flops. I had a bathing suit on, and I had my lifeguard whistle. They thought I was the weirdest person. It was like 8 miles straight down the road. It was in the city of Lakewood, so it was another town over. And literally, I ate lunch. I ran. You ever seen the movie Run Lola Run?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was running like that, 8 miles in flip-flops, and it was hot outside. And this is during the peak of summer, so I'm running for my lifeguarding job, and literally I'm like, oh my God, it's killing me. And then my flip-flop broke because it was like the cheap one where the strap breaks. So literally I'm like limping, and I'm like, fuck, so what do I do? So then I have some change, so I go into the bus, and the bus takes me down, and then the bus turns left. I'm like, oh, where are you going? They're like, oh, we go down to this other plaza here. I'm like, no, but I don't need to go straight. I just have like I ran 4 miles. I remember I ran halfway there. And I said, I just need to go straight. They're like, oh, but you can catch the other bus here, the circulator, but that's going to take you, not going to be there for about another 30 minutes or so. I'm like, fuck. So I got off. I was on the bus for maybe like a mile or two. And then I got off, and I kept running down, and I made it to the Exchange, and I looked like shit. Like I was all the way down. I was looked like that. And then I got the Toxic Avenger DVD. And for me, like, honestly, it was like a video game. When you make your quest, it's like you made it. You've got the grail. Here it is. And I'm like, oh my God, the DVD of the Toxic Avenger in full screen, And then I realized, I'm like, shit, I got to go 8 miles back. So I ran as fast as I could, and then I ended up taking a bus the rest of the way there. And it took me an hour and a half. So that wasn't bad because I ended up taking a bus halfway, and they're like, oh, where were you? I'm like, I just took an extended lunch break. I'm like, okay, cool. You got cleaning duty after this. And so that was my story of getting the Toxic Avenger on DVD. It was literally a fetch quest. My sandal broke. It was just 16 miles to get that fucking DVD.
But you did it. Do you still have that one?
I still have it. Yeah, I have it signed by Lloyd Kaufman too, and I think I have like 3 other copies of it. I have like the box set. I have the Blu-ray. I have it on Laserdisc. I have like 4 VHS versions, all different. So, yeah,
and the Laserdisc is a different cut too, right?
Yeah, it is. It's the cut version though. So I have it as a collector's thing, but I'll never watch it because most of the gore's cut out.
Yeah.
So that's my Fetch Quest video game version of Doug's adventures to get this DVD.
And Ade, what gruesome steps did you engage in to be able to watch this film?
Oh, for me to watch it? There was no gruesome steps. I didn't even know it was on Tubi. Nobody said anything to me. So I had
stuff like Troma stuff is on Tubi or it's on Prime, and
because I probably would have watched it sooner had I known it was on Tubi. But I made Dan get it for me last night, and then, like I said, I was trying to watch it today during my break at work, so I could at least start it and have it going. But I had a lot of time, obviously, in between because you guys, it's like what 4:30 your time, so it's like 7:30 right now in my time. So, so I had plenty of time.
Gotta get to bed soon.
I know, half an hour. And so, I'm glad that I watched it, honestly. And I kind of wish we would have done it last time, but I don't know why we didn't do it. And I realized like it's been like a little over a year since we did this. Like, oh my gosh. I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Since this group formed?
The group formed and that we did our True March.
True March was rad. I'm still kind of annoyed with Will, who formerly of Damn That's Scary, for being all like, because True March was like the sickest shit. I got to do Redneck Zombies. I got to interview Ed Bishop. I got to interview Jennifer Aspinall. I got to interview Mark Torgel. And our numbers fucking sucked. But I'll tell you what, it was for me.
Yeah, well, you want to know, hopefully the numbers don't suck for this one because the remake is coming out for this movie soon with Peter Dinklage. So I don't know, is Peter Dinklage playing Toxie in this?
I think so. And then Elijah Wood is set to be the bad guy, which is interesting as fuck. But apparently they stopped filming like 8 months ago from what I was looking at online. And so I guess it's a lot of After Effects. I don't know. But when I was looking at the timeline of events, I mean, the original Toxie came out in 81, right? Am I misremembering that?
I think it was 84.
Drum roll. 86 according to 84. We're right. So like I said, it came out in 84. So I mean, we're still 2 years away from like a huge anniversary. So I wonder if when they're planning to put this out and how. And then also, isn't Kevin Bacon supposed to be in the new one? Ade, you love Kevin Bacon. Isn't that supposed to be a thing?
I saw that a while ago, but I didn't look too much into it because I didn't really know if that was true. So,
well, it's weird, but this is the one time where I'm like, a remake would work, and it's not because they're remaking the original. Because if you think about it, Toxic Avenger 1 is so different from 2 and 3, and 1, 2, and 3 are so different from 4, and then you got the cartoon. So literally, I feel like if they're gonna make it in bad taste, which I think they should, they should make it like over the top and just crazy. But the thing is, I feel like Toxic Avenger, as great as the first movie is, like it's more of a kind of like Toxie is Troma's Mickey Mouse, kind of. So I feel like it's almost like this world of like this, like Ade said, a cultural phenomenon. Let's try to make it something different. And if they're gonna make Peter Dinklage, Toxie, I'm all down for it. So anything new Toxic Avenger, I am down for, because I absolutely love this movie with all my heart. And this is the movie that changed my life. Like I said, this is what made me get into the world of pain and torment of wanting to make movies. Why do I want to make movies? I don't know.
And I'm a diehard comic book fan. I have like thousands of comics. I have like 5 different comic book reading apps and stuff. Like I'm really into it. And Toxie is so refreshing in so many ways. It even caught like the eye of Stan Lee. Like I have read the Toxic Avenger Marvel comics, and they also have these other crap comics. I don't even remember what the company was did it. But there's something very interesting to be said about how so often you hear people do like, oh, you can't it's politically correct, you can't do anything nowadays. And it's like some of my most offensive and almost antagonistically provocative content I've ever seen is by incredibly liberal people. So already you factor in that climate that we're dealing with, right? This like false paragon of like, oh, you can't have free speech. And then you add the fact that I am so butt fucking tired of superhero movies, like all of it. And to have something be a direct, you could do this movie in 15 different ways and still have it work for me. You could do it straight horror and it would be awesome. And you could do it just a spoof and it would be awesome. And you could do it as a blend of both and it would be awesome, because I'm so fucking sick of that smarmy Marvel method. And I'm so sick of every DC movie being 17 hours long. So there's a lot to do right here. But I think the huge like moral of the story is brevity. I think that's where Toxie works best, because this movie's the shortest of all of them by a pretty far margin.
Yeah, it's the shortest of all of them, but it just it just blends everything together. It's like a palate refresher. If you're watching something serious, or you're watching like a bunch of A24 movies, then you're watching your superhero movies. This movie is just like, it makes like, this movie is just the epitome of fun. Like I really get like, there's no like, it just flows like butter. And it's just a fun, like honestly, like I always show people this who have never seen it before, and it's just a fun time, and people talk about it afterwards. They laugh. And everyone, like you said, Lloyd Kaufman's probably the most punk rock old man I've ever seen. In fact, I was such a fan of this movie when I was 16 years old. I made my first ever, it was a feature film, and I cut it down to a short, which I don't really like to say it because I think my early stuff sucks. Even my new stuff sucks. But yeah, the first movie I ever did was called Resident Emo. Remember when emo trends were a big was a big thing? So it's a short film, and it's in an anthology which is available on Tubi and Vudu. It's called Treasure Chest of Horrors, and my short film Resident Emo's in there. And I had there was a little convention at a hotel called Cinema Wasteland, and I was 16 years old, and I remember Lloyd Kaufman was there, and I had emailed Lloyd's. I went to Troma.com, like remember the old websites there, and it's like, oh, contact Lloyd Kaufman. I'm like, oh shit, let me do this. And literally, he was in Ohio at the convention, and I said, hey, I'm doing my little emo zombie movie. And I'd love to have you play the meat man in the movie. And he didn't charge me any money. He's like, yeah, I have to do it. We filmed the scene in the men's bathroom at the hotel in the lobby. And yeah, I just fed him lines and he did it. Like he's sitting on the toilet, like giving it's one of those scenes where he's talking on the phone, talking to another character, because that's all I used to know how to do. And yeah, so he's in my first movie I ever did. And that was...
Sorry, Doug, how the fuck have I known you for this long? And this is the first time you've told me this story.
I never told you the story?
Never.
No.
This blows me away.
Really? Yeah, it's called Treasure Chest of Horrors, but the movie, the short I did in there was Resident Emo. It's very, very offensive, because that was like that's when I first seen like terra firma and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I got to be the most. And, back in 2006 when I made that movie, everyone was down. Like, honestly, like that's the first, like in that high school, it was a Christian high school. It was pretty bad. But I remember I got suspended because I brought the Toxic Avenger to school and I was letting my friends borrow it. And the teacher like calls me over the PA system, like, this movie that you're studying, this has nudity in it. And so you're going to be in school suspension. I'm like, in school suspension for a fucking movie. And I used to do the audio video stuff at school all the time. So whenever the classes said like, oh, your group project is to make a video for the class. I remember after the Toxic Avenger, when I did Resident Emo, everyone was like, oh my God, this movie's so great. It's all just sharing it to your friends and stuff like that. But that's the first time one of my friends was in he tried to do his like Hot Topic punk band. And I said, hey, Toxic Avenger Part 2 has their own theme song. Can you make a theme song to Resident Emo? And it's actually pretty kick ass. I like that song. And my friend made that song for the movie. Yeah, Lloyd Kaufman plays the meat man that's telling people not to cut themselves at school. And yeah, it was just crazy because I remember it was like a plastic like Uzi, and we were filming it outside. And maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but
I'm watching your movie right now on YouTube. Your name appears 38 seconds in, and at the 35-minute mark, there's Lloyd Kaufman sitting on a toilet, having a phone call. This blows my fucking mind, dude.
Send the link.
You're a 16-year-old kid. Do you
I'm a
realize
16-year-old
how
kid,
crazy that is?
Yeah, you can hear my squeaky ass voice. Oh, and I played a character in there. Oh, fuck, that's offensive.
And
everything's offensive.
Too, right?
What's that?
It looked like Nick was in it too.
Nick was in it too. Yeah, Nick was the fat kid that gets the spaghetti ripped out of his stomach. Yeah, so yeah, I just use friends and family. My sister's in there. She ends up defeating the emo zombies with piss and shit. The
sister who just had a baby.
My sister who just had a baby, so
she's a mother now.
She'll show baby Luna this movie. She's like, look at my first acting thing. She's pissing she pisses in the student's lemonade and gives it to him. That was the gag of that. Yeah, it's crazy. I was just trying to be as Troma style as possible. But yeah, the zombies get eliminated through piss and shit. And we shot that movie. In fact, I used my school's camera because we used mini DV, and I rented it from the AV department, so I would film the movie on weekends or after school when anyone was free. I'm just like, hey, let's film more scenes for my movie. And I played this character called Sweet Pea, which was, hello, I'm Sweet Pea. I'm the ultra liberal conservative at the school. Vote for me and I'll turn you into a liberal. It's very offensive. But it was funny. And I remember I had this long muumuu. And I think I still have that muumuu because I had Coker wear it for that incel short that we did. And yeah, that whole thing was shot on mini DV. But I feel like I'm going on a tangent there, but it all harkens back to my love for B movies and the Toxic Avenger. And having Lloyd Kaufman be in my movie, that was like, and I was 16 fucking years old. And so to me, I was just like, holy shit. I'm like, I don't even know what to think. And now that movie got distribution, like just recently this year is when it hit Tubi. And I made that fucker back in 2006 or 7. So
oh my
he's
God.
using a fucking brick phone, dude. Like Not a flip phone, not a smartphone, a brick phone. That's how long ago this was.
That was his own personal phone. So he's like, I gotta contact Pat. Pat was his well, that's his wife, but he was always like, yeah, she's calling me again. Hold on, I just gotta tell her I'm in the men's restroom with another underage boy. So,
Oh my God.
It was like really funny. Like he was hilarious. Like I couldn't even, I would love to have a drink with him, but I was underage at the time. Oh, and then was it Resident Emo? There's one where I'm running around naked. Sweet Pea gets, maybe I cut it from because I was underage at the time, and I remember I was filming that at my school, and they're like, you're running around naked in this movie? I'm like, yeah, well, it's supposed to be. Like, no one wanted to do nudity, so I'll run around. And I remember some of the priests were like, hey, do you have a copy of your movie?
I'm watching your brother roll around in fake blood.
Yeah, see, there's a scene I shot from that, but the mini DV messed up, and my sister was supposed to play the mom, and she was like in this wig and a muumuu, and she's like, you're supposed to eat all your fucking spaghetti. And he eats the spaghetti, and then the emo zombie like rips it out of him. But that scene got scrambled on the tape, so I couldn't use it. So it just now looks like bad effects.
I see Doc in the movie. Oh
yeah, do you see me? If you're listening to it with the audio, like I said, 2006 was a different time. So.
Oh my God. I can't believe you never mentioned that. Like, I mean, I know that you said a lot of the stuff that you've done is on Tubi, so I know this, but I didn't know that you somehow
honestly,
managed
I forgot about it until like watching Toxic Avengers just like made me get all nostalgic. I'm like, holy shit, I forgot that I had Lloyd Kaufman in my first movie I ever did.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, and it's just
amazing.
literally, it's me as a 16-year-old with a mini DV camera, and I just use friends, family, schoolmates, stuff like that. So
let me ask you this. Bad Taste. Had you ever seen that movie?
Oh yeah, I love Bad Taste. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too.
And how old were you when you saw that?
I saw Bad Taste on a public domain collection because I had I think I was 11, so I was younger before I saw Bad Taste, but the quality was so bad that it didn't hit me as much as Toxic Avenger did when I seen that.
Yeah. But it just seems like that filmmaking style, like that's the exact same
literally,
thing.
It was like, okay, school's off at 2:30. Who's available to film? Literally, it was like that.
Oh, that is
just
so
watched a girl
fun.
poop on a tree.
That's my sister. The one that
There you go.
yeah, she poops and pisses on the tree.
So this is what needs to happen. You need to just monitor her relationship with her daughter very closely. And as soon as, there's even a slight spat between the two of them, you just give the kid an MP4 file and go, here you go. Feel free to use this.
Yeah, well, no, she's used to it. Like my sister, when she had a baby,
Is this your dad in this movie?
I think my dad is in that movie too.
With the fur cap? Wow, we're getting way off of Toxie.
Yeah.
But
The
spirit
all
of
harkens
Toxie.
back.
Exactly.
That's how Troma was. Like, that's how much Troma affected me. Because when I saw Toxic Avenger and then I started watching movies like Terra Firma and then just going into Troma's library, like it changed me. Like, I'm like, I want to make this shit. It looks like so much. I mean, making a movie is hard work, especially now. But it just made me want to make movies. So that's why I think this is the most influential movie for me. And, probably to all you listeners out there too, maybe it hits you the same way, but watch it with a new set of eyes and you could just see the griminess and the love of late night B movies. And this is it.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. 1 second. You can just leave it on the other side of the door. Thank you. All right, that was an interruption. Are you having sex with a mannequin?
Yes, I am having sex with a mannequin.
That is a very Troma thing as well.
Yeah, the mannequin rips my balls off. So
yeah, but just so we all know, this is in the movie, not right now in real time.
Yeah, not right now. No, see, like I told you, like I did some of these crazy shit, like, and that's when I used to work at. I made that movie a little later. The Mama, It's a Mannequin, and it's pretty much the same people from Resident Emo, but I had just some friends and family in there. But yeah, the mannequin rips my balls off. The balls were actually like stockings, and I put like meatballs in them. So it gets pissed off because I call the mannequin the wrong name, and so it comes to life and kills everybody at a birthday party.
That's crazy. But I mean, honestly, this is so cool to see, and it's like the essence of what Troma is, and the essence of like what so many of our fans. I mean, I'll never forget reaching out to Jordan from Cult Sounds and being like, hey, I love the Cult Sounds. I want to listen to the Cult Sounds. And he goes, oh, I thought you were reaching out to me because I did this fucking short film. And I'm like, what? And like so many people have this like passion for filmmaking, and it's just so cool to see that now, especially with stuff like YouTube. Like, imagine explaining to a kid, like, hey, we had the internet first before we had streaming video, right? Because my kids had Disney Plus, and they have Netflix, they have Hulu, and they have Vudu, and they have all these fucking things, but they don't browse the internet. So as far as their conception of everything is going to be, you just stream stuff versus we had to like navigate to all of these shitty websites. The idea of like downloading a movie,
it was inconceivable.
Blows my fucking mind. The amount of times I masturbated to an animated GIF instead of actual like video pornography, hilarious by today's standards. And so like, this is awesome. I'm excited to. We need to do a watch party, I think, Douglas.
Oh yeah, well, I'm a little embarrassed by it because I mean, that's I can't really be embarrassed about just being inspired. That's really what it was. I hit this peak of inspiring, and I wasn't big into sports or anything, and I'm just like, man, I really want to do. And everyone knew me at school and like in the town is like, oh, the weird kid that likes to make movies. So.
Well, I mean, when I was your age, I was in like a bunch of shitty bands. I was probably the resident emo, like, yeah, and honestly, it's a lot less embarrassing than some of our performances. I have a videotape on from when we played the Whiskey a Go Go, and I did a front flip at the end of the set, and I screamed, "I'm crazy! I'm fucking crazy!" My grandmother was in the audience, and I think back on that very often when I need to like check my sense of pride and dignity. Because it's gone.
Oh, well, I'm sure your grandma was really proud. So if I was your grandma,
the fucking coolest. And she was like this super liberal, like well-learned woman whose like favorite movie was Silence of the Lambs. That's what I mean. Like the idea that so often people kind of portray intellectuals as being overly sensitive. Those are the motherfuckers who are 9 times out of 10 pushing the envelope. You know, the conservative rhetoric when that's usually just like antagonistic. Like, I wonder what your gender identity is. Am I right? Blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
blah.
You want to know something funny? Now that I'm remembering it, I mean, it's not for right now, but watch the Treasure Chest of Horrors. Now, when I made that, I was in a school that was very Christian conservative. The town was very Christian conservative, but I wasn't. I knew, like, I didn't believe in God at the time, but I just had to act like I believed in it. And I, didn't believe in like all this stuff. I was like, oh, if you're black, then you should be at this school, or if you're poor, you should be like this. Because it was a lot of that stuff where I didn't agree with their politics, their way on gay views. They were like, oh, all gays should burn in hell. Like, honestly, that's what the school was fucking teaching me, and I absolutely hated it. So that's why I'm a proud, liberal atheist now. But I don't know, just growing up with that, but I was like 13, 14. I was hearing all this stuff here. My brother and sister were the same way. We're just like, we don't like what they're teaching us here, but we can't say anything. We're just kids. So what I did, and I have notes and stuff. I have a binder here with it too. But what I did is I got all these people that were ultra conservative, that were in the movie, and I made it seem like it was ultra conservative, but it was like the underlying tones was I was making fun of Christian conservatives. And they didn't even know, like, when we were filming it. And then they watched.
You were like Sacha Baron Cohen before, before proto Borat.
Yeah, so trying to be like this, this character. So I was playing like the Sweet Pea character, and even like the other characters in there, they're like, "Oh, I'm so into mental," like, because in the like I just read reviews now, and this is just coming out now because it appeared on Tubi for Treasure Chest of Horrors, and they're like this movie is so bad because it's making fun of mental illness and making fun of conservative and it's making fun of God. I'm just like, now you guys are catching on to it. At the time I had to really sneak this stuff in, and they went along with it, but in the end, I'm just making fun of them.
Hell yeah.
Well, maybe.
So, Abe, what's your favorite part of Toxic Avenger?
I guess I like the little love story. It's really cute. I love that the mom like comes to defend him at the end. There was things about it. I think that the end overall, was reminded that it was a Troma movie every now and again when like that bozo character would start yelling for no reason. I'm like, oh yeah, because I forget. Yeah, like everybody's yelling for no reason. I'm like, oh God, shut up. But so between that and then the effects were great. They had some really good effects in it. And
the one with the guy at the weight rack is always my favorite.
Oh yeah,
that's always going to be etched in my brain for as long as I live, because my mom at the time owned a gym. So I saw those every day. She'd pick me up and I'd sit in the back room at a gym for 8 hours before we went home. And yeah, that's like literally that's probably my oldest memory right now. If you put a gun to my head, that's the first thing in my entire life I remember.
The guy's head getting crushed in the gym?
Did I get concussions at the gym?
Oh no, I was gonna say, so the guy in the 80s they didn't have those guard bars, so you could stick your head in those spikes.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like, look what I got from the drug division. So and the one scene that a lot of people forget about, but I absolutely love, like I remember as a kid, even now, like I'll still rewind it because I think it's hilarious and it's well directed and well shot. It's creepy. The scene where the little lady goes in, she's like, Mr. Wilson, yoo-hoo. Can you fix these stains? My son came home with his best friend. And then she gets thrown into the dryer. You know what I mean? Like that, like at first I'm like, this is a horror movie. Like he got in the car accident. Now he's going crazy, killing innocent people. But no, she had a record a mile long.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like it's always so abrupt that I remember the first time I'd seen it in probably like 2 or 3 years. I was like, what? Did I miss something? And so I rewound it. I'm like, no. And then I would remember like, yep, it's a very abrupt thing, but it's purposefully abrupt, which is kind of weird because modernly I feel like so often we're spoon-fed narratives or shit's too confusing. It's like it's one or the other, to the point where we're doing like ridiculous voiceover type shit to like, oh, we can't alienate our audience. You know, we have to make sure we get our 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. Or it's like some A24 shit where I'm like, okay, I guess I can conclude that. I don't fucking know. And so this is a good blend of both.
Yeah, exactly. Now, do you like his voice or do you like his voice in the sequels more?
I love it. I think it's hilarious. The contrast between Melvin Ferd and that voice is great because also he has this sumptuous timbre to his voice. So, like, as far as his girlfriend's concerned, like, he's strong. He protects her. She never comments really on his smell that much. And then he sounds good. So, as far as she's concerned, like, she comes out ahead. So, it's a very interesting thing. But also, like, I could see how it's perceived as ableist, like, that he would somehow be exploiting her. But the fact is, he's very upfront, repeating himself all the time, like, I'm a monster. And she's like, I don't give a shit. So especially when you see how ableist like later entries become, it's very interesting that like she isn't exploited more. Like obviously she's almost raped, but what I mean like exploited in terms of like mean-spirited exploitation. Like the fact that she has too many canes, that's not really that bad, right?
Yeah, she's like throwing the eggshells in there. Yeah, I think it's just lighthearted fun. And then Sarah is just I don't know. I don't think he's like exploiting her. Like I always thought, like no, she's legit in love. You know, love is blind. So,
and so is she. Did you catch Marissa Tomei's in this?
Yeah, for a real quick second, she's spraying aerosol 80s spray after a shower.
Yeah, she's in a towel.
Yeah, which leads into another thing too. I think that like that's ripped out like out of a straight horror movie. I think that the scene where Toxie's chasing Julie through the basement,
after choking her,
like that's horrifying. Like I remember being scared at first when I seen that. I'm like, this is so great because it's action, it's gore. I was just laughing my ass off, and now I'm actually kind of scared. So it just works.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the better ones. Probably, if not the best one that you showed me, just as far as, because another thing I was going to comment on, and we said earlier, like, I'm so happy it doesn't feel like it's like 3 hours long. Because some of them are just like, can't watch anymore.
Well, that's like part 2 and 3. Like they just drag, like there's cool parts. Actually, part 2 would be a good smoke break episode, I think. Because I realized after I I'm like, wait a minute, I know what part 2 needs. Part 2 needs like either a lot of wine or a lot of weed. So
no wonder I've never enjoyed it.
Yeah, and when I watched it, like literally last time Coker and I watched it, we were laughing our asses off for the whole, and it was the funniest thing ever. Yeah, so that's what Toxic Avenger 2 needs. So you have to be under the influence for to enjoy Toxic 2, I think.
So what do you think of the voice contrast between whimpering Melvin and I think it's Mitch Cohen?
Yeah, who for Ade?
Either of you.
Well, Ade, why don't you go first? I feel like I blabbered enough diarrhea doo-doo out of my mouth.
Oh no, I'm just happy that Doug's happy, so that makes me happy. But yeah, no, when the first time I heard his voice, I just started laughing because I'm like, of course, it's like a stark contrast to what we have with Melvin, because I almost feel like, okay, maybe Melvin did have some sort of disability. Whereas Toxie, I feel like does not. Like, I think he's pretty with it. In fact, he's more charismatic like that. I mean, and I could see it's almost like it reminded me, and I know this is stupid, but it reminded me, I think, of Deadpool when the chick, what's her name, is with him, like, and then she sees what he looks like later and he's all burnt. And I'm like, but he's still fucking hot. I mean, he may look all burnt, but there's some things about him. Like, I don't see what the problem is, right?
17-inch dick.
I don't know. Well, maybe that. I have no idea, but I've never been the kind of person to like, I don't really, and this sounds whatever. I don't feel like I've been the kind of shallow person. Like there's always has to be something very like that attracts me to someone, right? So I could see why the blind girl, you hear his voice, he saved her, he's like, he's her hero. Of course she's gonna like him, right? And I think that they make her blind is kind of cute in a way because she never gets to see him, so she has no idea what he looks like. So I can see the plot point for that, even though it might seem ableist, but I don't think it's any worse than Freddie got fingered with what's her face in the wheelchair. I mean, so
yeah,
just saying.
That's actually way worse because she gets caned and orgasms because of it.
You never been to Bar Sinister?
Oh, well, you know what? That's where we're going when I come to LA. That's where we're all going. Yeah, I mean, maybe not Jake. We'll leave him in the car. He can drive us. But
I think Jake would like it. Yeah, upstairs is the dom room. My brother wore the dominatrix out. She got tired of paddling him. He's like, I thought there was a timer.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I think it's fun, right? Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Speaking of Toxie's girlfriend, does anybody else get reminded of Allison Brie?
Yes. Yes. I thought that the first time he showed her, I saw her face. I was like, oh, like, especially with her in that show where she's playing the character in the 80s. What's that show?
Glow.
Yeah, definitely. But I was like, oh, yeah, this is 1984. Was she alive? Yeah, because I wasn't alive yet.
She has good eyeshadow makeup, too. I'm like, man, how does she must be like a Jeffree Star model before the Jeffree Star was even a thing. Because I know you haven't seen the sequels yet, Ade, but they change her name, and she's like a cartoon character in 2 and 3. She's annoying.
But she does play the accordion, if I'm not mistaken. So that's cool because, I'm a Weird Al fan.
Okay, yeah.
Have you seen the first images of Daniel Radcliffe playing Weird Al in the biopic?
I seen something. Yeah, I think was it Ade? Was it you that shared it? Someone shared it on Instagram.
Probably me. I'm a big fan.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to.
I saw Weird Al at Amoeba's last time I was there before the pandemic, so that was kind of cool.
You and Amoeba's. But I forgot to tell you guys, I did Google it. So yeah, the last time I heard about Kevin Bacon being involved was last year around June. So I don't know. And
but I watched around that time he was going to be in a Tremors reboot, and then he was going to be doing. So I mean, I wonder if that's just because people play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon all the time.
Well, I mean, I watch him every Monday when he does his little song. He plays a song for everybody every Monday on his Instagram. And and he puts it on his little record player, or sometimes him and his wife, they'll play a song together. It's so great. You never watch it? It's his Monday
so
blues.
He puts on someone else's song.
Yeah, and he gives you a little intro why the song was like why he loved this song and this is that. Or sometimes he'll actually play a song. So but he never mentions Toxic Avenger is where I'm getting at. So, because I do love him. He was my Hugh Jackman before Hugh Jackman. So,
well, I think they're all kind of holding in Toxic Avenger because I feel like this movie, people know Toxie, but a lot of people haven't seen it. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're like a into like the B movie, but I don't think general audiences have kind of seen the Toxic Avenger.
It's like Street Sharks. People know that Street Sharks happen.
Yeah.
But like how many people actually know that that show was totally jawsome?
I used to have the VHS of that.
Me too. I love that one.
Dr. Paranoid. So
like they were like hot sharks. Anyway, I know I'm like Tina over here.
You're a furry.
Yeah, it turned
What's
into
a furry
furries.
for a fish? A fishy?
Fishy? Sounds like something else. But no.
For those of you who are like sitting here listening, going like, where's the analysis? Where's the making of? We have quite literally done that on this show. If you listen to every episode of Slashers, you will have heard us compare 90% of movies to movies like Toxic Avenger. And you can hear our prior interviews with Mark Torgel, with Jennifer Aspinall. We'll get Lloyd on here. Since you guys are on a first name basis and everything, him being in your movies, you send him a residual check and an invite.
What should I say? Hey, Lloyd, this is the underage kid that was in the bathroom at the Holiday Inn. Do you remember me?
Which one? Click.
I know. Well, and that's the thing too, is that I watch him all the time on Instagram, and he and his wife are always making blue aprons together. I'm like, I do that too.
Oh yeah, Lloyd's funny. Like Lloyd, well, he like had like these gummies. Like he tried weed gummies, and his like literally like it was the funniest. I'm like, I wish I could have recorded it, but he's like Blue Apron trophy wife. You're making the good tomato soup stuff. Oh, this is good. And she's like, Lloyd, stop bothering me. I'm trying to cook food. And she's like, legit. He's like, geez, I was just trying to record it. Jeez. And it's like it's legit. Like she legit got annoyed. She's like, sit down and be quiet.
Well, imagine being married to that guy. Like he's a great fun uncle, but to have that like in your presence at all time would be like, oh fuck God, like no, like that's the way people view me. Like the audience thinks that Jake's wacky antics are great. But Jake doesn't have real life friends because it's just too much. So, not to say I'm equivocating myself to Lloyd Kaufman, but those hyper people are usually a little bit jarring.
Yeah, well, Lloyd on set. Have you ever seen like anything behind the scenes stuff with Lloyd? Yeah, Lloyd is
crazy.
He's crazy. You don't want to piss him off when you're filming a movie. So everyone always comes out there. They're always crying. But you want to know? I have to side with Lloyd because when you're doing a movie with super low budget, you're time constrained. And if people are just talking when you're trying to talk, I get pissed off too. I don't know if I'd scream and stuff.
With people who aren't professionals.
Yeah.
So you really need to set that standard. You know, like these people don't have a huge amount of experience, if any. And so a lot of times the stuff that they're seeing is like behind the scenes footage, which is the most entertaining part of what's going on, not the most actual filmmaking part. So yeah, I completely respect that.
Yeah, so Ade, that's one thing too. You'd like to see if you'd like to see like some behind the scenes of like the makings of like Poultrygeist and Terror Firm. Like just watch it. Like it's a whole movie in itself. Like it's like a drama. You watch it like, man, this is stressful. Effects aren't going. Lloyd's going crazy, throwing shit, getting mad. So it's bad, but it's very entertaining.
Well, and I also interviewed Jason Yashanin last year, the guy from Poultrygeist, who actually played. You know, he and Lloyd technically played the same character. And he talked about, you know, very candidly, like the experience that he had. You know, he learned a lot, and it was like a crash course experiential learning in what is a very weird circumstance, but it ends up being very enriching for a lot of people. It's why people will work for him for free.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and that's the whole thing. Like, kind of boils it down to. And I didn't know about all that stuff when I seen it, but you know, just watching this movie, I felt like there was just something special that clicked, and it felt like a phenomena, like Ade said, of like low budget, no budget filmmaking, and just trying to do what you can with very little money.
And we get a great product.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of every movie we've ever done on Slashers ever, how does Toxic Avenger stack up?
Hey, asking me, you already know the answer.
Your turn, Ade. What do
Yeah.
you think? Even back when you were just a wee fan of the show.
Oh, wee fan. I does it stack up to any of the movies that we've done? I think as far as Troma is concerned, it's probably, I would say now that one's my favorite of the Troma.
Now everything else though.
Everything else.
Compare it to An American Werewolf in London. Do it.
Well, I'm not going to do that. You can't do that. But the thing is like, they do kill the dog in the movie, and I think that really made me sad. So I can't get it. And then they showed it again, and I know the dog had makeup on because he was still breathing, but still, like he was all bloody on the floor.
Even on my very fuzzy VHS, I was like, "Oh, he's alive. He's breathing. We're good."
But see, like the characters being so despicable like that, it's like you want to see them dispatched in the worst ways, get their arm ripped off, thrown in an oven, deep fried.
Yeah.
But honestly, if there's something that I have to say negative about the movie, it's that Slug. Slug and Bozo were like some of the worst perpetrators. I don't think they get killed brutal enough.
Agreed.
Yeah, he just gets choked out and thrown out of the car, and the other one he gets set on fire in the car. But honestly, like they should have been like skull crushed, skull fucked, eyes ball ripped out.
I always took that to be budgetary more than anything, because especially by the time you get to the end and he's disemboweling the mayor, it's like that's our finale. But because you add the emotive elements with his mom and his girlfriend and the support of the community, you get away with it. That's a great way of having a climax without a big budget. Is you add emotion and all the circumstances to have a narrative climax where it's not an action based.
Yeah, see, in the third movie, I think it's at the VHS store, but I always liked the VHS section because he rips out that guy's intestines and he plays jump rope with it, which I always love. So.
That's the best part of that whole movie.
Yeah, and that was a reshoot. That wasn't originally in the movie. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the guy gets his arm ripped off in a VCR. It's great. So it's like, why couldn't they make that movie more like that reshoot footage? But I digress.
Well. So expect us to circle back around to Toxic Avenger again when the next Toxic Avenger comes out, because we'll do it. I've seen every Toxie thing. I've seen every episode of Crusaders. I've read every comic. So nothing will escape us. If you'd like to have like a more in-depth discourse about the merits of the movie, the production schedule, any of those fancy fun things that you can Google that are very well researched and published online, hit us up. slasherspot@gmail.com. Leave us comments. We'll interact with you. This is obviously a passion project of both Doug's and myself. My first obsession was probably Ninja Turtles, and Toxic Crusaders ripped off Ninja Turtles and went right into there. And then I saw this movie, and I don't know that I ever watched the cartoon very much after that, because I was obsessed with the real guts and gore. And this has been a benchmark for the whole slashers. I mean, it's crazy to me to think of all, I posted the other day, I watched this movie on a tape that I got from a guy who's now one of my all-time best friends, who I met through this show, watching it on a VCR that used to belong to a director who made Blood Diner, which is my favorite movie I found through this show. So it's crazy the enrichment that this show has come out of in my life, and how much of that I owe to Toxic Avenger. So if you leave us a comment, we'll leave one back. Douglas, aside from getting married to a woman who's not a castrating mannequin, what are you doing lately?
Oh man, yeah. Besides the whole marriage stuff and getting all that stuff ready, and then the stress of trying to plan, we are still, besides Slashers podcast, we did just shoot new episodes for Saturday Night Terrors, new Friday Night Action, and new Grandpa Oates, and that's on B Movie TV on Roku. You don't want to miss Grandpa Oates. I'm gonna play the episode on Easter Sunday. The movie is a real rare one, but it's one of my favorites too. It's like Greasy Strangler meets that movie Lamb from A24. Oh, wow. So yeah, I don't know if I could say the title yet, but it's a British movie. So you get to see morbidly obese fucking, and a guy fucks a goat and ends up raising the goat as his son, and it becomes a rebellious teenager that wants to rip the family apart. It's a great British movie, and that's what I'll leave you with.
Oh, I've seen this.
It sounds like a cowboy movie, but it's not. You want me to just say, you know what I could say, because it's in public domain. The Revenge of Billy the Kid.
Yes.
Yes, Revenge of Billy the Kid. Yeah, this is one that I saw years ago, and I couldn't remember the name of it, and then Billy the Kid just never stood out, because I'm like, Billy the Kid, that's a cowboy thing.
We talked about this when we did Rabid Grannies.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, so Revenge of Billy the Kid will be playing on Easter Sunday, 10 p.m. on the Grandpa Oates Cinema Wood Chipper show that Jake has done the artwork for. So see, it's all commingling. And I blame our love for Toxic Avenger too, because all this stuff just intermingles. the love of it. People think it's a joke. They're like, oh, it's just a B movie. No, it's a lot more than that. Like, look, we've all become lifelong friends now, doing passion work for all this stuff, and then hosting B movies and stuff on Roku, and then doing slashers podcasts like Jake got Jackie Kong's old VCR. So, it's just, you never knew. And then I'm kind of glad to show you that Lloyd like worked with me when I was like 16 doing that movie. So it's just, it's a weird love for these movies that only the people that know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because otherwise I think it's very easy to disregard this kind of stuff as a flippant hobby, especially in a world of 1,000 podcasts and 1 million people who want to be in movies. There's a difference between people who want to be in movies and be recognized and be famous and make a profit off of stuff. Not that it's not viable. I mean, it's a great income and everything, and it's admirable in its own way. But then there's a difference between the obsession that a lot of other people have, where the aspiration is to herald these things and to make sure that they last and to make sure that we basically proselytize and tell the whole world, like, hey, you need to see Toxic Avenger if you haven't seen Toxic Avenger for free. I'm not getting paid by Lloyd. In fact, it costs us money to do this show. I mean, it costs us resources and sacrifices from other things, but we love it. We love our fans. And that was a very subtle hint that if you'd like to pay us, patreon.com/slashypodmugoogie. And Adrian, what other way can they give us their hard-earned currency that they could otherwise be spending on heroin or crocodile?
Oh yeah, or crocodile, sure. Yeah, no, you can go onto our Slashers Pod Redbubble page at slasherspod.redbubble.com. We've got a ton of accessories, t-shirts, designs, all of them by most of them by Jake. And we need to do like a Troma type design, I guess, at this point.
That's overdue. I can work on that while I'm doing everything else. It's no big deal.
No.
I want to say thank you to Ade and to Mikey and to Doug for keeping everything afloat, because honestly, my life has literally been in shambles in my real life. So everything that's produced, every episode, making it on time is all them.
Yeah, Abe's been doing all this editing too. Like Jake does the audio, like the initial thing. I don't even know the big words for the big PBS word. Processing, yeah. But yeah, so Abe's literally chopping away. You're going to be an audio editor soon, Ade. So
yeah, I mean,
professional.
Yeah. I know it's been a lot, and I just thank Jake for the opportunity all the time for having me on and stuff, because like I wouldn't have learned how to do all of this stuff, and I'm learning a lot from you guys, even you, Doug. So I think that it's always something that I've been interested in, and I never really had the people in my life to do this with. So meeting you guys just by chance and just by listening to the show, I think has been such a blessing. And the fact that Toxie like has inadvertently brought us all together, like how fun is that? Oh
yeah, and I'm getting a little emotional now, but yeah, it's just weird. Like how did Toxic Avenger like does this all the time? It makes people get creative and put their creative juices together to see this product you're making. It's low budget. We're filming this stuff in our garage, our room. So here we are, just the love of the project. So that's why I think Toxic Avenger is very deep for me, and Jake too. So
absolutely. And if you don't like Toxic Avenger, you can kindly fuck off. My name is Jake, for Ade and Doug saying goodbye and good die.